That's why hyperconscious was such a big thing. I never worked on my life. I worked in it. I was really good at working in my life, but I didn't know. There was no plan. There was no blueprint. There was no intention. There was no awareness. I didn't know. How do I know if what I'm doing is right? I don't really. I just know that I'm doing.
Better uses of our time, effort, money is if we talk about it and make some decisions and create some principles and new morning routines, new schedules. I'm going to do 11 to 7. Okay, what are we going to stop doing? What are we going to start doing? What are we going to do better? What are we going to improve? Okay, we need to redo the website. Okay, boom, boom. I just wonder if it's the unsung hero.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. Today, for episode number 1924, when is thinking the best use of your time? I was on a podcast the other day, as I am often. Shout out to the amazing Laura for getting us on so many amazing shows.
Laura.
And you get the question all the time, what has made the biggest difference? What are some books that have impacted you? What are some podcast episodes that have impacted you? All very, very, very good questions. And I said, honestly, I think one of the things that I am afraid to share because I don't know how to make it valuable for the audience is Alan and I have been having deep conversations and masterminding every day pretty much for the last 8 years. And
not Sundays, but yeah.
Not Sundays. So yeah, let's say
6 days a
6
week.
days a week. 5 days a week minimum.
And many Sundays, honestly.
Yeah.
Or in the early days. It was
especially in the early days. Because Sunday, back then, I don't think there was any
boundaries.
When you and I got into serious relationships, it was like, hey, we definitely need to have a day.
Yeah.
But I said, I don't really know how you can replicate that because I have a business partner and a best friend, and he's more into growth than I am, and he's learning more than I am. So it's this beautiful thing that we have going on. But there's something about sitting down and then just talking about stuff out loud with someone, whether you're just using them as a sounding board or whether you're pitching and catching or whatever it is, because you can accomplish so much in such little time in terms of setting up the framework, setting up the wireframe, setting up when you build a house, what do you put up first? Not the foundation. But what's the other thing?
I don't know, man.
I don't know what the framework, I guess, for the lack of better phrasing. That.
You talking about the blueprint?
No, maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Well, you have to have a blueprint, and that's done by a civil engineer / architect.
Mm.
Maybe both, depending on the size of the project.
The scope of the work.
The scope of work. And then there's the concrete.
I think we just give up because I don't know. It's not going to come.
It depends where, too.
It's framing. Framing. You frame a house.
Okay, there you go.
You frame the house.
We both coach someone who builds barn dominiums and houses and does all this.
He would be ashamed of me for not knowing. Yeah, he would be ashamed of me for not knowing that.
But I know how to help him run the business. I don't know how to build houses.
I could build some stuff, but not well. YouTube's a hell of a... You go on YouTube, you can learn pretty much anything.
Yeah.
With enough time.
Yeah.
With enough time. We used to have the running joke. Alan and I had Mondays blocked off to record. So you couldn't book a call with us on Mondays. It was just every Monday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. was blocked off. And Tara and I have a running joke. We'd get to the end of the day, and I'd walk out of the office, and she'd be like, how many episodes you get done? We got one done today. So you got one episode done in 9 hours or 8 hours? Yeah, a lot of deep talks about the business and strategizing. But honestly, at times, it was more important for us to mastermind and talk about stuff because we were setting up stuff years and years down the line that we just finished our 16th round of group coaching, and it was the first time we had all podcasters. That is something that we've wanted to happen, and we've talked about in the past, and we laid the groundwork and the framework, and now that's just happening. But those are almost everything you see today was conversations that happened a long time ago, and you need space for that. You need space to think, and you need space to have deep conversations. And we used to be part of a bunch of different masterminds, and we would do calls with people. And honestly, I never felt like, and if any of you are listening, I don't mean this in a negative way, I never felt like they were super valuable because it was always all over the place. When I want to talk about like the stuff that we're doing specifically, I want to talk about that. So it's not that they weren't valuable, and it's not that the people in the masterminds didn't have really good ideas and great experience and all that. It just wasn't as specific to what we were doing as I wanted. And that's essentially what you and I have been doing for the last however many years.
In hindsight, it's very clear to me that they are less valuable than I thought, but probably more valuable than you thought.
Well, I think who's there plays a huge role in it.
Emilia always asks, she said, and I've said this before, sometimes I feel like I help other people work on their life and redesign their systems and metrics and habits and skills and identity and priorities more than my own. Sometimes it feels like I can't get enough time behind the scenes, and I know this is a limiting belief because I have to make the time. But if you could just find a way to get 3 hours of alone time in your office without any distractions, I feel like I could really make some progress on. So Kevin and I, how many episodes were we supposed to record today?
We're supposed to record 5 episodes today.
And we've gotten 2.
This will be the second, yes.
This will be the second. Okay, now that sounds like a massive failure.
And it is.
And it is. And it is, depending on which frame you look from. But what we have done that I think often goes undervalued and unseen is how many hours have you and I spent contemplating 2025, 2024, what we're going to do differently. I mean, I'm doing a lot of thinking about what needs to change. And it's not easy. It's there's a million options. We could change anything. We could change everything. We could change everything we want. We could make. We could move. We could decide to can this. We could do. So it's very hard to figure out what to do and what not to do. That's a lot of cognitive labor is what it's called. And I just don't think we talk a lot about how much that's so fucking important.
Well, I think a really good explanation or a really good measurement is for every minute of us on the podcast, there is at least 1 minute of us masterminding about something. Minimum, at least. Yeah. If not more. And but again, you don't see that because that's behind the scenes. That's the thing that I think is super hard to equate for.
Let's do this. Let's connect the dots. Everything that we have created at one point was a conversation. At one point was a thought. There's a Emerson quote where he says, the ancestor of every action is a thought. And the ancestor of everything that you achieve is a conversation or a thought process or a principle or some breakthrough or whatever. And I told Kev before this episode, I wanted to talk about how when you grow and you evolve, it's the movie didn't change, you changed. The book didn't change, you changed. The relationship didn't change, you changed. And so when you go into old environments as a new version of yourself, it's because of the accumulated compound effect of all these masterminds, all these conversations. And I was on with someone recently on a breakthrough session. He was talking about the curse of knowledge. And I said, well, what do you mean? And I thought I knew what he meant, but I wanted to make sure. And he said, the curse of knowledge is you can't remember what it's like not to know that. Like when you're a kid, everything's new. Yep. Remember the first time you ever rode a bike? Remember the first time you ever saw a mountain? Remember the first time you ever saw a movie? Remember the first time? It's like, oh, that's the first time I ever saw a tree of that size. When you're an adult, there's a lot less first times.
Yeah.
And here's one that everyone can relate to. The first time you ever had sex. That was a whole freaking thing.
Different than I expected.
For sure. And a little different than you see it in the movies, right? But you become an adult, and we're in our mid-30s now, and there's very little that's brand new. And so bringing this back, thinking and contemplating and reflection. I always say knowledge plus experience plus reflection equals wisdom. And as you get wiser and older, I mean, let's take the last 36 years of our life, 35 in your case. You 35?
I'm 35 years of age.
Yeah. Maybe in March or something? When was your?
August.
August. My bad.
I don't care.
Okay.
You know that. I don't
All
care.
right. So, but seriously, let's take the last 35 years and reinvest them into the 36th year. We've been in business now for coming up on 8 years. So 2025 started in 2017. We're going to take the last 7 to 8 years worth of knowledge, experience, and reflection and try to do 2025 way freaking better than we did before. Like, what's the difference between Kevin and Alan in 2025 as Kevin and Alan in 2017? Kevin and Alan in 2017 didn't have a clue what they were doing compared to us now. And so, but the point that I'm making there is that the only way that we implement better, more effectively, better uses of our time, effort, money, is if we talk about it and make some decisions and create some principles and new morning routines, new schedules. I'm going to do 11 to 7. Okay, what are we going to stop doing? What are we going to start doing? What are we going to do better? What are we going to improve? Okay, we need to redo the website. Okay, boom, boom. I just wonder if it's the unsung hero. This work that we did all day today with nothing to show for it in the physical world, supposed to get 5 episodes done, only got 2. That is the unsung hero of manifesting your goals and dreams.
There's a lot of business sayings that cross over nicely to life, but I think one of the best ones is, and I think I probably learned this from you, or a book that you recommended, working on your business versus working in your business. So essentially working on your life versus working in your life. I told Alan this. I had a call with a client the other day, and he said, dude, it's so hard to explain. Like, I'm doing so much, but when I do stuff, it creates more stuff for me to do, and I never stop to think of, like, how to stop the treadmill. And I said, so you're so busy mopping the basement that you forget to turn off the faucet upstairs. And he's like, dude, exactly. And that's really kind of what we're talking about. Maybe for you right now, it's not masterminding with someone, but maybe it's sitting down and saying, okay, I'm so focused on in my life. I wake up, the alarm clock goes off, this, awesome, everything's good, I'm doing this, I'm productive, then my head hits the pillow, and this happens to me all the time. I just need to schedule time to sit and think. And I told Alan this, my schedule has changed a lot over the last couple quarters, where I was doing a bunch of podcasts and I was on calls back to back all day, and there was a season for that, and it was really good. And now I have like 3 or 4 calls a day. Some days I have 8, but I have time in between calls to, like, oh yeah, I should really reach out to that person. I haven't talked to that person in a minute. Or I had an idea that I brought up to Alan, like, hey, what do you think of this? Oh yeah, it's time for us to do that. Just, I'm able to be creative, and there's certain things about creativity that I'm just not able to practice when I'm back to back, just mayhem. So there's something to be said. There's something to be said for taking a little bit of time just to think. As weird and maybe arrogant as it may sound, there's so much there. If you're so busy doing, it might be beneficial to take an hour and just think about the things that you're doing. Just like if all you're doing is thinking and thinking and thinking, you probably need to put more time into doing. It's that juggling act always.
What's your doing to thinking ratio?
I
think my doing is 90%, 10% thinking. It's off. I think an 80-20 would be better. How many of the things that we've achieved were at one point just a conversation?
All of them.
It's the unsung hero. And that brings me to this, which is, does everyone out there watching or listening have someone to do this with?
I think the answer is probably no.
A safe space to... I playfully said this on group coaching. I said, Kevin has come to me with some atrocious business ideas.
100%.
But
as I will continue to do. But
course.
Some hit. A couple of them were like, that's a good idea, Kev. Few and far between.
I always know it's going to be a good idea when he says, all right, so let me fuck you up with the truth. Or he'll say something like, all right, now don't judge me for this. This could be the smartest thing you've ever heard or the dumbest thing you've ever heard. That's when I know it's something's
My
coming.
belief is that it's so smart, you're just not there yet. That's my belief. It's just so many layers above your comprehension that you just can't see the value in it yet. Maybe one day. If I keep trying, one day it'll land.
I could think of at least one where that wasn't the case. Hello, NLU listener. Thank you, as always, for listening to Next Level University. Real quick, I just want to jump in and let you know about the Next Level Dreamliner. This is a journal that I use every single day. Achieve your dreams 90 days at a time. It breaks down your dreams into goals, milestones, and daily habits. We hope you enjoy it. The link will be in the show notes. So, Kev, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm kidding. No, but energetically, do you have a safe space to brainstorm where you can throw shit at the wall and not be judged? And I think that that's just so critical. And that's what coaching is, too. So, again, unapologetic plug here for one-on-one coaching. Imagine an hour every other week where you're just brainstorming. You're working on your life instead of in it. That's what we do. You're not showing up to the coaching session actually doing manual tasks. You're not doing your task list. You're not executing the thing. We're just contemplating and working on your life. We're redesigning the blueprint of the house instead of actually building it. And you're going to end up, and I need to share this. There's something called prudence, which is the ability to make the right decision. And that's only after massive brainstorming and strategic thinking. If you go to build a house without a blueprint, can you imagine? It's going to be a hot garbage house.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's going to be atrocious, right? So in a lot of our lives, I think this is why young people I'll speak for myself. In my early 20s, I had a really hard time. I was very unfulfilled. My life was a shit show. It was, and again, not compared to other 20-year-olds, but too many friends, too many barbecues, too many parties, too many people, too many house, college, high school, college, friends, corporate, too many jobs, too many opportunities. It was too much. And I remember I had my boss's boss, his name was Brian Boatner, and I remember he was very put together. He always showed up to the office early. He always got there before me. Always left later than me. I'm kidding. I had flex hours. I got to go in at 11, leave at 3, and I worked from home in between games of Call of Duty. I'm kidding.
But really,
but occasionally in sales, when you're hitting your numbers, you're good. But anyways, so I was not well put together, and it bothered me, and I didn't have a well-designed life. And the reason why is because I wasn't working. I didn't study productivity. I wish I had studied these things.
Yeah.
The NLU is working on your life, not in it. If anyone out there watching or listening to this, you're working on your life right now. This is getting you to think about new ways to reinvent yourself and to reinvent your life. Like, you're not going to trust a company to go manufacture a new computer without any blueprint, without any thought processes, without a good manufacturing facility, yet we trust ourselves to just wing it.
Well, isn't working on it awareness? I was like, I really gotta make this land. Working on your life is awareness. You're looking down on it. You're literally like picking it apart. You're looking at it. It's like on an assembly line. And then working in it is implementation.
Mm-hmm.
And usually people are really good at one or the other. People are really good at one or the other. If maybe you're a super philosopher and you like to hang out and just have deep ass conversations about everything, but you don't do anything with it, or you don't do enough with it. I'm not saying you don't do anything with it. Or you're somebody who's just really good at taking action, and when somebody says, yeah, if you want X result, you just do this, 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 and this, and you just do it. That was me. Just tell me how to do it, and I'll go do it. But I didn't have the awareness. That's why hyperconscious was such a big thing. I never worked on my life. I worked in it. I was really good at working in my life, but I didn't know. There was no plan. There was no blueprint. There was no intention. There was no awareness. I didn't know. How do I know if what I'm doing is right? I don't really. I just know that I'm doing. And I think that's a really good, for me at least, that's a really good way to think about it. Awareness is working on your life. You're becoming more capable of turning the right screws and cutting the right wires and adding the right ingredients And then working in your life is when you go down into the maze and start doing stuff. It's like, okay, now I know this button does this. Let me hit that. Let me do this. Let me do this. But it's got to come from a place of awareness first.
I never told you this story before.
Oh, boy.
But when I was in LA, I lived with a buddy of mine, and he would have I was trying to work in show business, makes sense, business, and my roommate was working on being an actor, and he had an actor friend who had been in the show Entourage, and I don't think he had a main role, but he was in it, and they would always talk about acting, and acting is really cool to talk about. I mean, you're basically being a different person. How cool, right? You get to go into their mindset and their belief system and their insecurities. You have to, acting's a whole thing. And there's different archetypes of the warrior and all this stuff. Apparently I'm the warrior, but basically someone who's relentless and unreasonably driven, and no
What
one
am I?
likes that person.
The turtle?
The turtle. No. I would say in some ways you probably are the archetype of the warrior, but probably not sometimes.
Like,
I don't know. That would be a
junior,
whole
like small warrior. That's me. I'm small warrior.
small warrior. That will be your new nickname.
That's my name.
But anyways,
Small
so they would, I remember this vividly. I was searching for a job out there. I was in college debt. I needed to make money. And I was applying to at least 10 jobs a day, if not more. And I remember I would come out from work and I would see them smoking weed, just philosophizing about acting. And I remember thinking this in my head, but I was too much of a coward to ever say it out loud. It's like, you guys really are talking a lot more than you're walking here. Like, if you went and applied to auditions and like, if you went on more auditions and actually put in the work, you guys would be much more likely to succeed. I just applied to 10 jobs and I had a bunch of interviews, and people say work smart, not hard. I think that's inaccurate. I do. I think that you need both. I'm convinced of it. Because usually you don't work smart. I mean, you and I can talk about this 8-year journey. How many little tweaks that are obvious in hindsight.
Yep.
Oh, why don't we just do that? That makes perfect sense. But we already beat our head against the wall for 2.5 years doing it wrong before we did it more optimally. And so are you on the end of, anyone watching or listening, are you on the end of, they would just sit around and they would just talk about acting, and they'd talk about the industry, and they'd talk about their craft, and I love it. I'm with it. I love deep conversations too. I've been doing that a long time. And they'd just smoke weed and talk shit, and the whole day would go by. And I remember thinking, I just applied to 10 jobs. I'm going to be more successful than you guys, not from a negative place, but from a place of like, you can't just talk about acting. You got to go on auditions. You got to go shoot your shot. And I think that if you were to put two actors up against each other, one of them goes on 10 auditions a day, and the other ones are talking about the craft of acting, the one who goes on 10 auditions a day is going to get a real shot to actually practice the craft of acting. And then, yeah, it's like with being a fighter, you could probably speak to this better than me, but it doesn't matter how many times you got to hit the bag. You got to hit the bag.
Yeah,
the bag doesn't hit back.
No.
Yeah, you got to understand the fundamentals of whatever, I don't know. But then you got to get in the ring. Got to get in the ring. And this happens in intimate relationships all the time. I'm like, well, I'm not in the place right now where I want to be in an intimate relationship. It's like, well, I have one person I'm coaching, and he wants to learn how to be better with women, and we got to get you in the ring. We got to go on dates. You can't just read a book on relationships. We need to actually have you.
Yeah, you're working on it. Like when you're reading books, but you got to go do it. You can't learn to snowboard on YouTube. I tried, and then I ate shit. You can get an idea. You can build a framework, but you can't. Imagine trying to learn how to swim on YouTube. Again, there's things you can do, but you're never going to know unless you jump in the pool.
Yeah.
And it might work. It might work. You might say, oh, yeah, I did exactly what the person told me, and it works, but you'll never know until you jump in the pool. Mm-hmm. Real quick before we go, because I know we have to go. I watched an interview with Jason Segel. You know Jason Segel? Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
Yeah.
He wrote, I'm pretty sure he wrote Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And there's a scene where he gets broken up with while he's just naked, full frontal male nudity naked. That actually happened to him in real life. And he got broken up with while he was naked. And he literally said, he's like, as much as it sucked in the moment, there was also the actor and writer part of me that was like, this is going to make for a really funny scene in a movie. And when they started doing or I guess when he was pitching the idea of the movie, he said, this scene has to be in it.
Nice.
So, and he also, when he was going through something, I don't remember exactly what it was, he wrote a Dracula musical. Like that Dracula musical in Forgetting Sarah Marshall is real. That's not made up for the movie. That's something like he wrote and was trying to do as a side project. Seems like a very interesting character. So,
and also, how did the Dracula musical do? Pretty good.
Didn't do well. Yeah.
No.
The guy he brought it to said, "You can't show anybody this. This is terrible. You can't show anybody this ever. You can't ever show anybody this."
I know we got to go, but being out in LA, I will say, there were a few fairly famous. One of the guys was in Fast and the Furious that I partied with. It's a trip. It's interesting. Behind the scenes is a trip. For sure. I'm not necessarily saying it's great. I wasn't a fan of LA personally, but I lived, you walk out of my apartment, you look to the left, you can see the Hollywood sign, and Sunset Boulevard is right to the left, and the other way is potentially dangerous. It's a trip, and if you've ever been, it can be fun, but yeah, it's behind the scenes, the ideation prior with these people in the industry and all that, it's so much goes into everything that no one sees. I think that's the thing. There's so much beneath the iceberg, and it's so much different beneath the iceberg than it is from the outside in.
I've been to LA once. I would rather live on the bottom of somebody's shoe than live in LA.
Not
and again,
a fan.
If you live in LA, I'm not throwing shade at you. It just depressed me. It depressed me.
I'm not a fan either, my friend.
But I know, not everybody
That's why I
wants to
came
live
home.
in snowy New Hampshire. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. Not everybody wants to live in snowy New Hampshire or snowy New England either. All right. As always, we got to go. We got to party. We love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. At NLU, United Fans, we have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Talk to you soon.